He's been a top lawyer and a Washington power player for decades, President Biden's personal attorney, and the former White House counsel for President Obama. Bob Bauer has helped Democrats wage and win some of their biggest political battles. Now, in his new book, he is admitting that winning at all costs might not be the right approach in politics. Recently, Bauer has turned his attention to defending election integrity and fighting disinformation. And joining me now is Bob Bauer, appearing in his own capacity, not as the president's attorney, and as the author of Unraveling. So congratulations on your new book. Let's show the cover of the book here. It's a wonderful book, let me just say. And just the way you describe your career and also what is happening right now. So let's talk about what you see as the threats right now to democracy in the way our elections are conducted.
There are a lot of sources of distress in the democracy, a lot of sources of the strain on the democracy. But one of them is what I call politics without ethics, which is politics is a hard-driving business. It needs to be waged vigorously. There are obviously enormous stakes in many political battles, and that's all to be taken for granted, to be understood. And so I'm not at all apologetic about the battles that I've joined in, but what I've observed over time, and I write about it in the book, I try to explain it through some of my own experiences and observations, is that it could become this sort of win at all costs, a form of anti-democratic politics, a politics in which your adversary becomes your enemy, a politics in which you refuse to accept the outcome of elections, a politics in which law is a blunt instrument that you use to bludgeon your opponents with. There's no recognition of the difference between public interest and private gain and private political gain. And if those democratic norms are worn away, then we don't have a true small d democratic politics. And that's something we all have to be extremely concerned about.
Now, after January 6th, after the attack, you advised lawmakers to change the law so that it would no longer be possible to make sure that a vice president doesn't have the authority, even though he or she does not have the authority, but that there could not be any confusion about any loopholes. Of course, they didn't, and now won't. And given what we're facing now, you and Ben Ginsberg, a prominent Republican election lawyer, you've combated in the past, but you've worked together.
Yes, we have been opponents in cases on the other side of the table. I met him, by the way, representing different parties in a contested election in Congress. But we recognize those fights, and they're vigorous fights, and there's very little that we agree on in the way of policy matters. But those fights have to stop when it comes to protecting fundamental democratic institutions. And we recognize that people who are involved in politics and government have a responsibility when they make choices every day to win elections or to win policy debates, to think about the implications of those choices for democratic institutions and norms. And I've been very pleased to work alongside Ben and other Republicans where we can come together, which, by the way, is how electoral count reform passed. It was a bipartisan effort.
And right now we're facing no decision yet on immunity, presidential immunity. What many people say are unconscionable delays on the immunity issue because of the D.C. Circuit's opinion. There are so many ways it could have been handled. And right now, it has been more than twice as long as the High Court, in an 8-0 decision, decided the Nixon tape issue, which did essentially involve presidential immunity.
Yes, I mean, I think a lot of people expected the court to schedule the hearing on this more quickly, but certainly to decide it more quickly once it had heard oral argument. I imagine it's every day now, but of course, those who are concerned about whether we're going to have a resolution of these federal prosecutions are increasingly coming to the conclusion that the chances of those coming to a resolution, coming to trial this year, are slight.
Slight, if non-existent. Let me ask you about debates, because you write about debates in your book, and you write about having played Donald Trump the last time around and having to behave unhinged and having to go after Joe Biden and insult him. And, you know, at one point you got so carried away you fell into the swimming pool. Oh, another point, I think you stepped on one of the dogs.
No, as a matter of fact, I was taking a break and I was playing with,
you were playing with
President's
the
dog,
dog,
Major,
right.
and I launched myself into the swimming pool in the course of trying to heave the ball a good distance. But
At least you didn't get bitten by
no,
Commander.
no.
This was Major, not
he
Commander.
was delightful. But yes, what you try to do in any debate prep, and I've done it in other campaigns, and I've done others than Donald Trump, is that you try to give the candidate that you're working with a real feel for what it's like to be debating that particular opponent. And so you have to look at how someone like Donald Trump or whoever that might be actually performs. Sort of what are they willing to say? How are they willing to argue their case?
Is it harder with Trump because he seems to jump from one thing to another, and many of his insults have to be fact-checked in real time? Is that hard to prepare someone that you've done?
No, it's sometimes, to be honest, it's hard to say some of the things that he says, some of which are, very fact-free. And it's hard sometimes to take on that tone just because it's, by the way, not a natural tone for me, but then you're playing a role. You're trying to make the experience as realistic for the person you're working with as possible. And that's true throughout all the debate preps that I've done. I, for example, played Al Gore in the primary challenge with Bill Bradley. Again, you're just trying to be as much like as possible the person that you are, that candidate is facing.
You regret some of the things that happened in that campaign.
Pardon me?
You regret some of the decisions you made in the Gore-Bradley campaign.
I write about the Gore-Bradley campaign. What I regret most of all is there were moments, and one of them, by the way, occurred during a debate, when the Gore campaign chose to completely misrepresent Senator Bradley's vote on a particular issue and knew it and was called to account for it by the press eventually, but wouldn't deviate from that line. And that's part of a chapter in which I talk about, again, the responsibility of people to be tough in their politics, to make their argument, to make it fiercely, but at the same time to step back from misrepresenting issues to the voters in a way that I think is really inimical to the democratic process. We just cannot have the people who are most responsible for the dialogue not respecting the voters. They can argue hard to the voters. They can puff up, if you will. There's always some puffery, but there has to be a line at outright deception and misrepresentation. I write about that in the book.
Bob Bauer, author of Unraveling.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.